Hi guys, good evening. Welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I'll be doing my episode review for last night's episode of The Strain, which premiered last night on FX. I just watched it just now, and it was another good one. It was very very good. This one had a lot of heart to it, I felt. Well, anyway, before I get into all of that and I talk for too long and I talk too much, please be warned that this episode review, like all my other episode reviews, will be full of massive spoilers regarding the most recent episode of The Strain. If you are not caught up or if you're behind by a few episodes, please do not keep watching or listening to it, as I will be revealing a lot of stuff that happened. And if you are caught up, please keep watching and listening, as I hope you find this enjoyable and informative. You have been warned. That being said, great episode. I loved the, not necessarily throwback, but I loved like going back to the beginning, when, like, in terms of like going back to ground zero, like, so to speak, where it all started. And apparently, I love the fact that apparently outside of New York, where, outside of the infected zone, they refer to as no man's land. That's where JFK airport is. And this whole airport was completely deserted, abandoned. And then the streets, it had people robbing each other at gunpoint. It made Dutch and F interfere. And of course, I was hoping for some cool kick-ass assistance from Quinlan. Even though it was reluctant assistance, he still helped out nonetheless. He incapacitated most of the thieves, and the family drove off. And I loved that moment where he like slowly sticks out his tongue, as he's still a Strigoi. He's half Strigoi, but he's still a Strigoi. And he tastes, and he like drinks the blood off of the blade of his sword from the man that he killed. So I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy, but really cool at the same time. Because, we have to remember he is a Strigoi, half human, yet half Strigoi. So it's pretty cool. I liked that, I liked, and poor F was going over the whole situation. It's like, I could have stopped it here. This episode, I felt like, had a lot of guilt for a couple of our characters. Definitely F, he's thinking about, I wish I would have listened to Satrakian. I could have stopped this plague before it began. I was here with Jim and Nora, both of whom are now dead, and we had a chance to stop this and we didn't. And then, Dutch said to him what Satrakian would later say to Fett. You got to start by forgiving yourself and letting it go. And like, if you want others to forgive you, sometimes you have to make the first move. Dutch referring to Satrakian, of course, because obviously things have not been that great between F and his allies lately. I hope that they come together and soon, because we've only got like 4 episodes left of this season. I'm sure things will patch up between all of our characters, and they'll return to one central single unit instead of being off in these tiny little groups together. I mean, it still makes for great storytelling, but just for the sake of their relationships, I hope they all make their way back to each other. I love seeing Dutch meet Quinlan for the first time. She caught herself by saying what instead of who you are. And she corrected herself, but Quinlan, was pretty understanding of it, And I wonder if he felt troubled seeing some of his people being dissected by humans. Now, granted, he did refer to them as unfortunate creatures, and he's never shown any hesitation on killing other Strigoi. But I do wonder if there's a part of him that feels almost a little bad about what he does, because he is a Strigoi. These are his people, even though they're not a pleasant race of creatures, they're still his people. And I'm wondering if we're ever going to see that with Quinlan, where he feels like an almost reluctance to fighting other Strigoi, where the only one he really wants to kill is the Master, his father. But I wonder how he feels about other Strigoi. It's hard to say. I would venture to guess that he doesn't feel too bad about killing them, because of how quickly and efficiently we've seen him kill Strigoi before, and in this episode. What was kind of confusing was the whole flashback to World War Two, and I'm like, okay, there's no way in hell that's Fett's father, or is it? And if it is, how does he look so much younger than Satrakian? who was pretty young during World War II. That's what I didn't understand. I thought it was cool how both Fett's, and that turned out to be his grandfather, his father's father. I love how both Satrakian and Fett's grandfather both cross paths with Eichhorst at one point. Pretty chilling scene, Eichhorst making him execute the Jew, and then he executes his friend anyway, and then they execute the rest of the Jews. What I thought was really, really interesting about this episode, well, a couple things. I wasn't too surprised. It was still sad, but I wasn't too surprised to see that something horrible had happened to Fett's parents when he was in their neighborhood. He decided to check on him, understandably, of course, even though things weren't that great between them. And what I thought was really interesting about it is that scene where he discovers his parents committed suicide together because they were both infected. It was extremely reminiscent of the movie 28 Days Later, where the main character, Jim, returns to his neighborhood, to his home, to discover that his parents have also died. They also killed themselves. Not because they were infected or anything, but because they felt like the world was coming to an end, and they thought they would be joining their son, whom they were presumed was dead anyway. And this scene where Fett finds his parents was very reminiscent of that scene from 28 Days Later. Another great movie if you haven't seen it. Don't worry, I didn't spoil anything too key for you there. It was just a little scene in the film. But I'm like, oh, yeah, this definitely feels familiar. I recognize this right off the bat. What I thought was so interesting and like a clever, not necessarily a twist, but a tie-in, was that I loved the fact that one of the reasons why Fett and his father didn't get along was not only because, he said it himself, his father had incredibly high standards for him and criticized him for it every chance he got. And he wanted him to be an architect, and he had an opportunity to go to college, to a really good school, and instead became a rat exterminator. That much was indicated in season 1 when we first met Fett and his parents. But when Fett reveals that it was the fact that he went into a profession where his job title had the word exterminator in it, it reminded his father of his father's crimes, being a Nazi collaborator during World War II, as he revealed to Fett. So in those flashbacks, that was Fett's grandfather, the one who was reluctant to shoot the Jew, the one who was trying to help his friend. And, the fact that Fett took a job with the word exterminator in it really made his father resent him, because it reminded him of the family's embarrassing and darkest moment where one of them was a Nazi collaborator. And then explained like the changing of the last name, moving to America. And what I thought was really surprising, well, not really surprising, but really touching, was Satrakian and Fett kind of bonding over this similar history almost. And, I like how they start to open up more to each other on a personal level rather than a mutual interest level of defeating the Strigoi. Because they still get along and they're respected and trusted allies, but it was nice to see them become closer together. This season, I feel like, is doing a better job of really developing the characters' relationships with each other. And that also goes for the antagonistic relationship between Eichhorst and Palmer. They never, it's like in the first couple seasons, they got along for the most part. But as Palmer has slowly started to betray him and the Master, and he allowed Satrakian to get the Alcidio Lumen, obviously the relationship has turned for the worse. And I don't know what plans the Master and Eichhorst have for Palmer, but apparently they still need him, at least up until a certain point. And I love the jabs and the insults they exchange with each other, Eichhorst and Palmer. It's very amusing because it's like both bad guys ripping into each other. It's pretty funny. So very good episode. I'm very excited about the next one. Like I said, we only have 4 more episodes left until the season finale. Can you believe it? It's already been 7 episodes. I mean, it feels like time is just Flown by like that. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me here on the EdWord for another episode review of The Strain, which premieres every Sunday night on FX. Check your local listings for times. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel as we continue to follow season 3 of The Strain. Don't forget to check out my Facebook page in the description down below. I think you'll like what you see. What did you guys think of this most recent episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you have a favorite part, or did you feel parts were unnecessary? Please leave your comments, opinions, and feedback down below in the comments section. If you have to disagree with one another, please do it in a civilized and polite manner. Internet trolling will not be tolerated, nor will any unnecessarily aggressive and negative comments. You can disagree with each other, just be civil about it. All right, you guys, have a wonderful rest of the night. Thanks again for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe. And of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.